receive an official diagnosis, but you will eventually recognise her for the crazy-making trail she leaves behind. The mind games, covert manipulation, ever so subtly causing conflict between family members, and playing her own children against each other. I'd like to remind you at this point that your mother's inability to nurture you is not your fault. It was a parasitic relationship where your mother gained her sense of self through you. Her self-image had to be protected and her reputation maintained. And upholding the illusion of being a loving mother was of utmost importance. Please note I said illusion. A narcissistic mother's children are part of her identity, so their behaviour must represent and uphold her public reputation. She carries an air of superiority, arrogance, and invincibility. The narcissistic mother is incapable of love, and she's envious of her own children. She suffers a severe deficiency of empathy and considers those who have empathy as targets she can manipulate. She will sabotage and erode anything that resembles goodness, happiness, or success. Her constant criticism, impossible standards, and inability to ever be pleased will reel you into her game because she wants you to forever be tied to her apron strings. She knows exactly how to press your buttons and how to cause conflict, chaos, and confusion within the family. The narcissistic mother is incapable of intimacy, either with her children, friends, or her husband. The only affection she chooses to demonstrate is toward her chosen golden child, and perhaps the occasional awkward gesture of affection toward other members to pull their emotional strings. When she senses they may be awakening to the truth of her psychopathology. This is evidence that she knows exactly what she's doing. All family members under her control are like chess pieces, allocated a role that she governs with a tight iron fist. She will defend her delusional and grandiose persona at all cost. In fact, she will fight to always prove she's right about everything. She has no problem whatsoever in meeting her own needs before her children. In fact, she's quick to accuse you of being inconsiderate and selfish. She's domineering, pushy, and authoritarian, and of course believes that she is brilliant and infallible. In the case of a narcissistic mother who is more somatic, meaning she uses her looks and sexuality as a primary source of attention, she will still be convinced that her beauty is ravishing and alluring to all. She will brag about her youthful good looks and all the alluring suitors that were lining up to be with her when she was younger. She still believes she's irresistible to all men, but of course that doesn't include her own husband. She just married him out of pity. He wasn't really her number one choice, so she's just had to tolerate him all these years. She'll have no shame in publicly humiliating and demeaning her loyal and usually voiceless husband at every occasion. She will discuss in a very sentimental manner how her life could have been. It's just another opportunity for the gullible audience to pity her, to feel compassion for all the hardship she's endured, and that she's always been a victim. But oh well, she's so strong and will carry on despite her lot. The narcissistic mother shows no shame and enjoys the very awkward attention her inappropriate subject matter receives. Exaggerated details and stories of her past victories and successes will be heard repeatedly and at every opportunity she has an audience. The narcissistic mother may behave inappropriately and childlike at times. She may wear her younger daughter's clothes, she may associate with her children's friends, and it's not uncommon to see her flirt with her own children's partners. While her adult children become visibly embarrassed, she remains completely unaware of any discomfort her topics of conversation may be causing others. She is just telling the truth. The narcissistic mother is highly critical and has impossible standards. You will always be made to feel wrong and not quite good enough. If you are the scapegoat, she will publicly humiliate and mock you in front of other family members. In fact, she will set you up for failure. She takes great pleasure in making your life miserable and convincing you that life is hard. She will not tolerate being contradicted, questioned, or her absolute authority challenged in any way. She discriminates between her children, is envious of them, and very limited in her emotional expression. All emotions are very shallow, and I'll provide more details of this in my book. So this is just a brief summary. Children of narcissistic mothers grow up feeling neglected, abandoned, and ignored. Her chosen golden child will grow up smothered, spoilt, and used as an instrument of her gratification. The golden child is not loved for who she or he is, but for what he or she can reflect back to the narcissistic mother. To this day, you may still feel that you are responsible for everything. The narcissistic mother will use guilt and shame to manipulate you for wanting to have your own life. And until you recognize the nature of your relationship, this will continue into adulthood. You will be unable to detach from her because she doesn't want you to. You are a source of supply. Narcissistic mothers will demand loyalty, respect, and attention. She will accuse you of being disrespectful. In fact, every difference of opinion will equate disrespect. Her life and preferences come before yours, always. And the overbearing sense of guilt will disable you from ever feeling like you deserve to live life on your terms. She is intolerant of any alternative points of view or questioning of her decisions. She will not tolerate criticism, whether it's real or perceived. She is extremely opinionated and argumentative. And for those reasons, nobody dares to expose her or confront her. Obligation is a tool that the narcissistic mother uses frequently. The narcissistic mother will encourage her children to be dependent on her, and that includes well into adulthood. She will intentionally hinder her own children's individuation process, and she has many covert methods to ensure her continuing presence in their life. She often plays her most familiar role of the victim and disguises her control by informing everyone of her dedication to her children's welfare. Narcissistic mothers often behave inappropriately or share inappropriate information with their children, or discuss intimate details of personal matters with their children. They create the illusion of having a special relationship with one of their children, and these children become surrogate partners for their narcissistic mothers. It's very perverted, and many boundaries are infringed upon and violated. The child often feels very awkward and uncomfortable, and this violates their natural childhood development. She is the ultimate puppet master, pulling emotional strings long after you've left home. Her ability to pull your emotional and psychological strings will be felt whenever you want to make a decision in your own life. And when the narcissistic mother steps into the role of being the grandmother and thus becomes the family matriarch, she becomes a force to be reckoned with. I commonly hear this, and that is people having a fear of the phone. And that is because we just never know when to anticipate it'll be a call from her. So people tend to develop a phone phobia because of the random abusive phone calls that we receive on a regular, very random basis. She reserves the right to drop by at all hours and to call you whenever it pleases her. She also expects you to listen to her convoluted conversations which leave you in a headspin, usually consisting of complaining about other family members, gossiping, triangulating, and innocently planting seeds of poison in your mind, giving you a rampage of all that's wrong with the world, infecting you with fears about the latest catastrophe and graphic descriptions of anything else that comes to her uncensored mind. Conversations with a narcissistic mother feel like an invasion of your psychological space. She expects you to disclose everything she asks of you. Privacy, discretion, or boundaries are foreign to her. She will ask you a barrage of questions. Whether you feel comfortable or not is not an option. It feels like you've been probed against your will as she accumulates data to use at her indiscretion later. You often get off the phone feeling drained, overwhelmed, and generally very unwell. The narcissistic mother will convince you she knows your every thought and what's best for you. In fact, she's the expert on everything. You'll notice that she'll always give you warnings and premonitions, not encouragement or faith in your own abilities. She'll hesitate to give you compliments and make you feel like you need to earn her recognition and acknowledgement. Remember, her love is conditional. It's based on a reward-punishment system. You must please her first, and then she may consider rewarding you. If you don't appease her, she'll withdraw her attention, or use the silent treatment as punishment to let you know you've displeased her and you should try harder. Emotional withdrawal is a common tactic of the narcissistic mother because that's how she maintains her control. The narcissistic mother will use emotional blackmail and bribery to maintain her control, and money is often used as a substitute for love. Her fake modesty and her fake reassurance that she doesn't want anything in return is a lie. It's just a matter of time when she will expect you to honour her sacrificial gesture, and she will expect you to meet all her demands from then on. And she'll feel justified in reminding you of all that she's done for you, in case you ever consider hesitating meeting her requests. You will owe her, and she will own you. The narcissistic mother will sabotage and undermine relationships between siblings. She usually remains the undetected cause of all the family's turmoil. The family dynamic that is ruled by the narcissistic mother will be highly dysfunctional, filled with secrets, grudges, unresolved disputes, palpable resentments, and ongoing conflict. The narcissistic mother knows no boundaries and has no conscience, as she feels justified to use whatever method required to keep you under her domination. The reason why our childhood was filled with anxiety is because we learnt that we couldn't depend on her protection, love, or nurturing. We repressed a deep sense of shame about who we were. We may have felt like we didn't have a right to exist, because in our mother's eyes we were never seen or heard. Most of us felt starved of physical affection and a loving emotional bond to give us some sort of sense of stability and sustenance. In our child's mind, we internalise that there must be something wrong with us. We may have even idealised our mother, only to grow up decades later and be horrified when we confront the truth of her pathological behaviour. The narcissistic mother will continue to foster the energetic umbilical cord between her and her children. Children of narcissistic mothers are forever bound to their mother and often feel unable to sever themselves from this toxic enmeshment. A narcissistic mother is unable to properly bond with her children. And when we fail to form healthy attachments to our mothers, whether it's due to abuse or neglect or emotional unavailability, this detrimentally impacts a child's brain structure and function. And our childhood attachment trauma affects our self-esteem, our ability to learn, and whether we'll be able to form healthy attachments with other people when we are adults. And I'll just briefly mention, because this is really important for people who have endured narcissistic abuse, and particularly those people who feel so frustrated because they keep attracting the same partner and keep having the same repetitive and
Everyone thinks she's so interesting.
Distressing relationship. We adopt certain attachment styles which we form with our narcissistic parents. And if we're not aware of our attachment style, we will just keep repeating and attracting the same type of relationships until we become conscious of these dynamics that we inherited, which stems from that original attachment trauma. The trauma we experienced is embedded in our cellular matrix. It's a destructive attachment that bonds us to unconsciously keep repeating the victim-victimizer cycle. If we continue to blame, feel guilty about, and keep projecting our pain, we are still complying to this covert enslavement program that's meant to keep us in anger, hate, isolation, fear, and misery. So, unresolved trauma from a narcissistic mother or father can keep us trapped in the belief that love is hard, love means pain, and if we continue to believe that, we'll keep recreating that dynamic. I'm just going to end here, but I want to introduce you to the concept of the false parent in a future video. This is such a powerful realization I really want to help you awaken to, because it can help you tremendously in setting yourself free from still being entangled in the trauma caused by a narcissistic mother. This very empowering concept can release you from this cycle of powerlessness where you constantly feel victimized by your mother or by the dysfunction of your family of origin. And this is why so many of us are starved for information, because information is light and ignorance is darkness. And that's why I'm so inspired to share these insights to accelerate your awakening from this. So much has been distorted and kept hidden from humanity. But once you know, you can no longer pretend not to know. We only fear what we don't understand. So I want to widen your perspective about narcissistic abuse beyond just the psychological aspect. I really want to make this topic transparent and crystal clear to you. Education and checking in with your heart are the most powerful tools in reclaiming your authentic self and your authentic power. Knowledge allows us to transcend this. Please remember that this is not your identity. This is something that you have the power to transmute and to transform into your greatest point of empowerment